bro. You guys don't understand how much I've been struggling to do these intros. Like, they're the hardest part for sure. Okay, two quick things. First off, William is a funny dude, man. I should be facing you. I'm sorry, that was rude. William is a funny dude. So even though the audio is kind of suspect, I promise this episode is worth listening to. For news and updates, follow us on Instagram at The Fork in the Road PC. And please remember to click the download button, even if you're just streaming the episode on Spotify or Apple Music, because that's the easiest way for me to get accurate numbers of who's actually listening. So, Will and I have known each other since 2015, and we graduated together in 2018, graduated high school together. He was born and raised in Calgary, and he is the co-owner and operator of a fly fishing business called Flyberta with his friend Harry Osler. Will graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Physiology from the University of Alberta in 2022. He has an acceptance to a Master's in Neuroscience at the University of Calgary as of the recording of this episode. He had chickens as roommates for a year when he was in second year and has aspirations to become a doctor, is taking the MCAT this spring of 2022. So in this episode, Will.B.Fishing spoke about his love of fishing, obviously, and the solace that you can find in suffering through your discomfort. This was a long episode, so there's a Patreon exclusive episode. So if you have the ability to support the show, I promise you that Will makes it worth your time. Betzner, it's been a privilege to learn how to fish from you, how to just be a human being from you, how to, spend time together and just enjoy each other's company. And I cannot wait to have another doctor in my contact list. It's very, very helpful when you're always running into stuff. So thank you, family, for sitting down and sharing your life with me and the rest of the world. And for those of you listening, I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of What Makes You Happy. Everybody, I would like to welcome you back. This is William's basement, so I don't really think I should be doing the welcoming. He has invited me into his house.
Yeah, welcome to my home. Welcome in.
I appreciate it, man.
Of course.
Genuinely.
Yeah.
So, this week, I'm talking to Will about whatever Will sees fit, man. That's the best part about these What Makes You Happy. It's entirely tailored to you, your experience, and whatever you want to talk about. But just to give you a little background as to why I'm here, when I was in high school, I had this series on my Snapchat called Keaton Tries White People Sports.
Oh my god, I remember that.
And in gym class is where I did a majority of them, but the only actual white people sport that I engaged in over and over again was fishing because you gave me the opportunity.
True.
So,
and to give a little context, our first fishing experience was a shit show.
Yeah.
That was terrible. It was terrible. It was really early in the season. It's spring runoff, so the water was high as hell, super fast, super muddy. Mm-hmm. We went to a spot I'd never been to before. It was a mudslide.
Yeah. It
was a mudslide. We left that place, I think, covered chest down in mud. Mm-hmm. It was fucked. Mm-hmm. It was terrible. We caught nothing. It was I felt bad because I'm dragging Keith with me, slipping around, just coated in mud. And I'm there's no way he's ever gonna want to go again. And then I don't think there's been a summer since where he hasn't pestered me to go fishing.
Yeah, bro. I don't know.
Crazy.
I love it. But Will is on to bigger and better things, so I'm gonna let him tell you a little bit about himself, where he's come from, what you learned in school, because this guy literally just finished his last paper last week. So.
Yeah. It was a crazy process. So, I'm obviously from Calgary,
mm-hmm.
born and raised here, and that's how I know Keaton. Met him in high school at Aberhart, which was a good meeting, and then from there I spent my first year at the University of Calgary in a degree of chemistry. I was following my brother's footsteps, rather, and then I was finishing up my first year, and I was what am I doing here?
Right.
I was in a serious period of stagnancy. I felt like I wasn't developing as the individual I wanted to. Mm-hmm. A lot of people do, where you kind of glorify the idea of university. And you're I'm going to meet a lot of new people, try a lot of new things, get out of my comfort zone. and it felt like high school. And I was like, wow, I'm hanging out with the same people. University of Calgary, for those of you that may go or may know, it's a little bit of a commuter school. Right. So a lot of there's not a big community at the University of Calgary. There's nothing that I found that unified everybody. And I was like, I don't feel part of a culture. So it just was not the place for me. And I was like, okay, what do I actually want to do in life? And initially I was like, I'm a fisher. Yeah. I like fishing. So I looked at some like fishing degrees and I was like, all right, this is not... actually, I remember the distinct moment. I was sitting in my kitchen. My parents had gone out with this doctor for dinner. Right. And he came back liquored. Yeah. I was liquored. And he's like, well, like, what do you want to do with your life? Like, what are you up to? And I'm like, I'm in chemistry right now, but I'm like thinking about maybe doing like a degree in like fisheries management or something, because like I love the outdoors. And he's like, are you fucking stupid? And I was like, maybe. Why do you ask? And he's like, why don't you be a doctor? You can make a bunch of money, take 3 months off the year, and go fishing wherever you want. And I was like, wow, actually, that's a really valid point. Yeah, I'm like, you know what? As a fishery manager, you're not, unfortunately, making, like, you make a living wage, of course. But I was like, how far do I want to mix my passion and my career? I'm like, this is something I have never done. At the time, I wasn't teaching fly fishing, and I had no experience in the industry whatsoever. Right. But what I did know is, you know what I do have another passion for is learning about the human body. Yeah. I'm like, as a kid, this is like a classic childhood fact about myself that I always used to get teased for, but my parents didn't let us watch like YTV. Okay. No YTV.
Damn, that sounds like borderline abusive.
It's terrible. But what I watched instead was like those like Planet Earth BBC documentaries, Discovery Channel, and it's like Golden Age. Same with like History Channel, and it was like all education. And I always learned a lot. And I remember I loved learning at the time as a kid. Yeah, bro. And something that I always loved was like biology and animals and learning about the human body. I was like, wow, this is fascinating. So that ended up translating where I was like, you know what, I'm like, I can see myself actually finding a degree that's related to the human body and like loving it. So I looked at all the University of Calgary degrees. Remember, I looked at kinesiology in particular, and I was like, you know what, there's the odd classes here that I don't want to take. I don't want to take like introduction to like volleyball coaching for kids 207. Fair enough. I'm like, you know what, that just like there's stuff I don't want to take here. So I ended up looking at the U of A, found their physiology program, and every course I was like, wow, that sounds like something I would love to take. So I said, fuck it, transfer, like put in the application. The day it came in, I remember it was Valentine's Day. Weird. And I accepted it instantly, and I was like, wow, I'm transferring universities. And I had no friends that were doing that. I knew nobody really at the U of A to a whole extent, or I hadn't even really thought about it when I accepted it. I was like, wow, I'm going to like complete unknown here. And I loved it. Right. I was like, great, I'm finally getting out of my comfort zone. Yeah. And then I came to the U of A, and it turns out I did have some lifelong friends that were also in the city. I lived in the most ridiculous situation in second year because I didn't spend it at residence. So I was in this house that had chickens in the backyard. There was talk. And it was like inner city Edmonton. They had a chicken coop. It was crazy. But anyways, long story short, I ended up finishing up my last year of physiology, doing some crazy courses. I did a whole body dissection. I did this research course that was a year long, in which I completed a thesis and found out that I loved research. And then, just as Keaton mentioned, I finished up my last paper literally last week. Yes. Finished up the undergrad. Thank you. Yeah, that was good. And then now I've applied, and it's a bit of a situation, but been accepted, I'll throw it with air quotes, to a master's in neuroscience at the UC for some clinical stroke research stuff, which is really exciting. And yeah, that's kind of where I'm at now. And I guess outside of academics, I also run a little fly fishing guiding and instruction business. I'm working at a restaurant right now, doing some hosting stuff. It's pretty good.
We're going to get into Flyberta, don't you worry. I'm here to talk about fishing. Yeah, but of course. If you're ready for the first question.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So, William, when it comes to your physical health, your mental health or your spiritual health, or all three. You can answer 1, you can answer 2, you can answer 3. What makes you happy?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Great question. So, I'm definitely going to relate all three because I think they're of course related. So, personally, I am not a spiritual individual. I'm not religious. I never really have been. I guess I've had points where I was considering religion in different lights, I guess you could say. Right. So, where we are now, in my basement, I grew up next to this huge Catholic family. Actually, funnily enough, one of the brothers from that Catholic family was the owner of the house, the second year of chickens.
Oh,
but anyways,
that's awesome.
Weird connection. Yeah, but they were a huge family of like 9 kids, and they were all like super Catholic, like very, very, very traditional Catholic. And they had lots of friends that were also massive families, like 10 kids, 11 kids, huge families. And this was right when I was in kind of grade 4, 5, 6, and 7. And I just moved schools. And it was a big changing point in my life. And I hadn't, of course, you're like grade 3, 4, like you don't know who you are yet, of course. So I didn't know what I wanted to do in life, whatever I was at, of course, I was just a kid, but they were a huge sense of community. Right. Of course, I had one brother, and then I had my family. My dad, he's also a doctor, and he worked for Stars at the time, so he was working a ton, so he wasn't around a whole bunch, and I wanted something solid, and I wanted community, and they served that for me, and they were great friends growing up, because of course, it's 9 kids. The amount of games you can play just with your neighbors with that was crazy. We could do cops and robbers, whatever it was, and
you could have the whole squad.
The whole squad, exactly. And then if like one of their family friends pulled up, suddenly you had 21 kids.
Exactly.
And it was like 2 houses coming together. That was it. Like
gym class,
bro. Gym class. So that community aspect I loved, and that almost made me actually convert to being religious. My parents were super supportive. They're like, well, you can figure out whatever you need to on your own. Yeah, which is great. And then it reached a point where I got a little bit older, and I realized the reason of why I was pursuing religion was not because I felt an actual connection to God or the religion itself. It's because I wanted community, and I wanted friendship, and I wanted to feel welcomed. And of course, that's a lot of the reason why many people look to religion, of course. And I was like, you know what? I don't actually need to find that here. I can have that, but I don't need to have the religious part for me. It didn't serve anything for me mentally. And as somebody who's very like logic and reason based, I'm not commenting on religion itself here, of course, but I found for myself, I was like, you know what, I don't like the religion standpoint of spirituality and relating that to giving my life reason or purpose. It doesn't do it for me. So that kind of strode me away a little bit from the spirituality avenue in that sense, but from a mental and physical perspective, talking about that a little bit more for what makes me physically happy, I will always use fly fishing as the metaphor for almost everything in my life. It serves a lot. So I find a key. It's like a complex kind of question, I guess, but and like answer. So a lot of time with being happy, it's about perspective, right? So, of course, no one's life is perfect. No one has everything come easy, everything come good, everything come happy. And if it did, it would be boring. Our lives, of course, a good analogy is a bowl of oatmeal. Okay. so let's go. So, oatmeal. The first bite, you got some apples on there, cinnamon, whatever the hell you put on your oatmeal. I don't know. Brown sugar, it's tasty. You get that first bite, and you're like, fuck. Yeah. It's good oatmeal. Yeah. Shit. Maybe you hate oatmeal, I don't know. But anyways. So you get that first bite of oatmeal, it's good. The second bite, pretty good. Yeah. Third bite, okay. Fourth bite, fifth. By the 6th or 7th bite, you're eating the same fucking bite every time. And suddenly it's like, this oatmeal is shit. Yeah. It's terrible. Yeah. So this is why, the overnight oats fat. Yeah. I can't do it.
It's literally vomit in a jar, bro.
It's terrible. And each bite is the exact same. It's homogenous. Right. So getting back to my actual point about homogeneity and whatnot is, of course, so I find for like from a mental and physical standpoint, having like ups and downs where you're trying shit that's way out your comfort zone, like really hard. The mental and the physical standpoint where you get both the ups and downs, mix those in and have a good perspective about it of like, okay, what can I actually learn from this? What can I gain from these hard experiences? And then that makes you, or you learn lessons, and it makes you appreciate those good moments a lot more. Yeah. Which is like really convoluted answer, I guess.
No,
and like
but
a good start. Works. But anyways, do you have any thoughts on that? What about for yourself?
I think it's very interesting to hear you talk about the world and the wholeness of the globe in a natural sense, because that is basically the number one lesson that I've clung on to, is that since I started learning about biology, I've come to realize that every single thing is connected.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's like people need to think about repercussions, and they need to think about how is my present action going to affect my future self, or my future self's children. You know what I'm saying? Because while we need to live presently, and you can speak to this if you prefer to live presently or if you're constantly thinking ahead, because you said you're logical, so that leads me to believe you might be a planner, but
I'm not.
Okay, exactly. So there's different types of people, right? But with everything like that being connected, I feel like if you're not willing to learn and appreciate, hey, I'm in the mud right now, I'm cutting myself up, but I am one with the natural process, with the flow of the water, the growing of the trees, I would argue to a point that is spiritual well.
That's,
you see it differently.
Yes, that's how I was gonna then. I realized I like trapped myself a little bit by saying that I was a spiritualist. The quote I say all the time is fly fishing is my church, right? Because that's where, and this relates a little bit to the perspective conversation, I guess. But fly fishing is an activity that's fully engaged. Yeah. Because of course you're using both your hands, you're using your feet, you're using your whole body when you're casting. All of your senses come into play. For sight, sound, smell, feeling the water, temperature, all of that is coming to play, which is really cool. So what that gives you the opportunity to do is when you're fly fishing, all of your senses are engaged, all of your thought is engaged, everything, that since you're fully occupied on every standpoint, it gives you a sudden clarity. Where, for example, I'm somebody who like hyperactive ADHD, like that vibe of that doing things, and I always have in progress tasks in my head that I'm thinking through at the same time, or that I'm teasing apart, whatever it may be. And fly fishing, since you're so engaged, you only have room a lot of times to approach one at a time. So it gives a great chance of, for example, let's say you've gone through a tough period in your relationship, and it's like, we had a disagreement, and I don't really understand why. I need to break this down. I want to maybe talk to somebody, or maybe I don't. Maybe I need to think about it, but I don't really know how. I've also got this essay due. How do I commit some time to do my little business thing? I'm working here. I got this to do. My parents asked me to do this. I've got some friendship commitments. I've got these plans, and suddenly it starts building, and you can pick one at a time. But of course, you've always got these other baggage you're holding on to. But fly fishing, since again, I'm not going to go into the details about it, because we all know it. When you're in nature and you're again, fully immersed, a lot of times you're waist deep in a river, for crying out loud. Exactly. It's such a peaceful environment to begin with, that a lot of time you're not, your baggage is suddenly just automatically, the stress levels are just reduced. And it's been shown. It's nature reduces your stress levels. So that already brings it down, right? Now it's okay, we got a little bit more quietness, a little bit more approach this. Now we're fully engaged doing our fly fishing activity. Let's take one of those problems, one of those thoughts, something I want to break down, or maybe it's an idea I want to tease apart or creatively approach. And you can take one and use that time when you're fly fishing to be all right, let me break this down, see exactly what's going on. And then doing the full critical analysis of it is really easy to do when you can take one problem at a time, which is like a lot of time when you're praying or in church or a priest is giving a sermon or whatever it may be, he's approaching one problem, or you're approaching one problem, or you might be praying about one thing. And again, a lot of times
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
Water in my trachea. You gotta give me a minute. Okay, continue.
But anyways, a lot of those like problems are, you can when you're in a religious setting, you're approaching them one at a time. Right. And the cool part about it, and it's like a theme I've noticed a few times that I've gone to church, and was a lesson I actually took in the way I approach problems, is a lot of times the lessons you learn that are like a priest will again feature in a sermon or in the way you approach a problem is a lesson you can take with you for 1,000 others, right? That might not even be related to your relationship with, let's say, your partner. For example, it might be with a friend or with your parent, where you're like, the reason I'm having this argument is because I'm lashing out because of what my relationship with my mom is like. And like, for example, she undermines me all the time, and that makes me feel poor, and then when my girlfriend is like giving me a compliment, I can't take it seriously because I feel like she's actually undermining me, even though she's caring for me, for example. Right. But
that was a hypothetical.
That was a hypothetical. Yeah, that was a hypothetical. But anyways, yeah, that's a lot of parallels between fly. Again, you can give me any topic and I'll relate fly fishing to it somehow. But yeah, that's the spiritual setting in it for sure. Is it kind of gives you a way to like, again, calm yourself, bring yourself to a level. It was a book called Digital Minimalism. Okay. And it was talking about how like power of like silence. Right. And it used like Abraham Lincoln as an example for writing like the Emancipation Proclamation, and how the setting he did it in was silent. Right. And that's how it led to this like profound thought. Right. Because a lot of and it relates to how I talk about fly fishing. I love fly fishing with friends. I love it. I love going with a second person because, again, sharing those moments is where the most fun is, right? Because then now you have that connection with somebody. You're like, wow, we saw that beautiful butterfly today while we were fly fishing. Like, that was the coolest thing ever. And like having that versus, again, when you come home, you're like, guess what I saw? Yeah. And people are like, okay, you saw a butterfly, like whatever. But but you're like, you need to be there for the magic of the moment. It was so pretty, like flying over the stream or whatever. However, I think there's a blend where, and this relates back to that like silence random thing I brought up, where having those moments to yourself is equally as powerful. Right. Because there's so much realization and introspection. Yes. I think that's the word, introspection. Facts. That can occur when you're on your own. And a lot of times that's when you need to be, because I think it's a little bit of like a pessimistic perspective about it. Okay. But there's times where you won't have the people around you, right? Facts. I think having the practice of being like, having times to yourself and having silent times to yourself. You're not listening to music. You're not listening to an audiobook, for example, or watching a show or watching YouTube, whatever your kind of de-stress may be, and taking, and it relates to like meditation, right? It's the same thing of having a silent moment to yourself to take what the fuck's going on in your life, whether it's a problem, whether it's a solution you want to find, whether it's a project you're working on, or again, classic is relationship or food you want to try, whatever the fuck it is, and taking that in a silent, again, environment and breaking it down of, okay, what, like, let me critically analyze this on my own. Yeah. Let me see what's actually relating this to me. And a lot of times when this relates to how some relationships can go awry, or sometime an interaction doesn't pan out like you wanted it to, is because you didn't take that second to think, right? I mean, there's a million examples of it where you're like, oh, if I just thought for like a second, I could have said that just like a little bit differently than exactly. Or it's like, for example, you think about it after and you're like, oh, I had the perfect comeback just like right there, right? Let's say it. Like, no! But I think a combination of the both is, of course, the best solution, I think, for me. Whenever just relating back to fly fishing one more time quick, but I like going with, I have a cousin, I've talked about him with you, I think, before, Dusty. The absolute classic legend. Character. Yeah, he's a character. But when we go, we have an awesome dynamic that we have great chats, banter a bunch, we go get snacks. It's always ridiculous. And we have moments where we'll kind of leapfrog around each other on a river where you like give a guy a spot.
Right.
Your fellow fisher a spot, and then you'll go to the next one. So you get these moments, 5-10 minutes to yourself while you're also together. And then you're also in range where something crazy happens. You can be like, yo, don't come here. Like, I'm hooked into a monster, come on.
Yeah.
And you can share the both, and it's a great blend of like having the social aspect as well as the solitude aspect. Yeah. And that's a dynamic I love.
No, I hear you. I genuinely hear you. So for the second question, we'll modify the third one since you honestly answered most of the third one at the start of the podcast. But for the second one, what gets you through your worst days, William?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I was thinking about this before you came. So one of them is actually practice. Mm-hmm. So I personally like horrible days at work.
Okay.
And I like horrible workouts and academic challenges that I hate, incredibly boring moments. I think those are so valuable in this day and age.
Yeah.
Obviously, I don't love them. In my last year of physiology here, I was doing and I'll get to the moral of the story here in a second, but I was in a lab and I was working with rats. Mm-hmm. And we were doing an experiment where we had them in chambers and it monitored their breathing is the gist of it. However, you needed to constantly adjust the gas inflow and outflow.
Right.
Because you couldn't get it to equalize. It was the most annoying thing ever, especially if you're doing two rats at the same time with this little bit of a janky system. You always had to be changing it because the temperature of the chamber's changing, slightly increasing the pressure, and you just have to fuck with these knobs nonstop. It was terrible. Yeah. And I hated it because it's incredibly mundane. You're sitting there just being like, oh, I have to do it like a little bit. Oh, I did it too far. And just adjusting it a little bit for 5 hours at a time. Right. And I was like, oh, this is mind-numbing. Yeah. And, this actually reminds me of another story. Anyways, those moments of, I had the option to start watching a Netflix show. Right. Listen to some good music, maybe find some new music, call some friends, whatever it may be. And I did that sometimes. Sometimes I'd be like, you know what, I want to kind of not just be on my own thoughts and actually like distract myself a little bit here. But there was other times I'd be like, you know what, again, there's going to be days where I'm going to be stuck doing a task I fucking hate. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to have my headphones. I'm not going to be in a situation where I'm comfortable, where I can, for example, stop running, or, for example, there's something that's like irritating me a little bit and I'll have to deal with it. Mm-hmm. There's lots of people in their lives that have a disability or whatever it be, or an injury that's healing, that they have to do a repetitive task or whatever, and it just aches the whole time, or whether it's, again, you're stuck for it's the sake of your family or whatever it may be, that you're doing a boring task for a whole day or a whole week or a whole month, and it's like, and to train yourself to have like the willpower to do so, I think is valuable. And this day and age where we got social media, you got your phone in your pocket at all times, a laptop on you, whatever it may be. Instant gratification all the time. Where it's like, again, you can think of it of even yourself. If you consciously pay attention to the times where, let's say you're on a car ride or like taking the bus up to Edmonton, for example, and how often are you checking your phone? Right. You're pulling it out and doing something on it, whether it's nothing. Right. Instead of just being like, you know what, let me be present and just be alone with my thoughts for a while. It's unbearable. It sucks. So for those, in preparation for those worst days, before I talk about those worst days, I like to prepare. Right. I like to like take moments where you could take the easy route. And it's like easy. Like, for example, I didn't have to run that day. Yeah. I could have turned around. Easy. Exactly. I could have easily... What the heck is the point of me sitting there and actually being engaged? Turning knobs and being a little bit... Yeah, what the fuck is the point of that? For example, I could have had that as more productive time. For example, I started listening to audiobooks. Exactly. Where I would do a day occasionally where I'd be like, you know what, let me be alone with my thoughts and break some stuff down. Or I'd be like, you know what, let's listen to an audiobook and actually learn something while I'm doing this. And... so like preparing is something I like to do. Because then it's like, all right, you know what? When it comes to those worst days, I know that I've been through it before.
Right.
And I can get through it.
Exactly.
And I did that as a conscious decision that I was like, fuck it. I'm going to have a terrible day today. And I'm going to choose to.
Yeah.
Fuck it. Like, let's do it.
Yeah.
And that I found was a really great way for myself to... Because then when you come to a terrible day, you know what to expect.
Exactly.
You know the walls you're going to come to. And you're going to be like, you know what? This is like a couple hours into this, I am going to want to do nothing but drive a fucking railroad spike through my forehead. Mm-hmm. But it's like, you know what? I've had that before, and I crushed it. And I got through it. Yeah. And I can do it again. Mm-hmm. And then the next thing is, again, it relates to the perspective thing I was talking about happiness, is when you come to a bad day, you come to a shitty event, whether it be as extreme as somebody you love dying. What determines how that worst day goes is your next step.
Exactly.
So you can either... Again, sit in those feelings, which is okay to do for a while. That's fine. A lot of people need that. But sometimes you just need the rest, the break. Let me just get my energy back. So now, okay, I just need to cry it out. I need to be pissed off for a second. Mm-hmm. Whatever. All right, work through it. Work through what you need to do, and then now let's tackle it. Let's do the next step. So, what I always like to do is think about when I'm in a shitty event, whatever it may be, think of what am I going to take from this? Mm-hmm. What am I going to learn from this? Mm-hmm. I don't want to come at this empty-handed. For example, like networking,
right?
Of course. So networking when you're like meeting with, say you're trying to do like virtual coffees, you're like, oh, I want an in to get into this engineering firm I want to get into, whatever it may be. Yeah, yeah. And you're like, I'm going to email 10 recruiters for that firm. Let me see if I can get somebody's email. And you get a chance to meet with one. Do not leave empty-handed. Right?
Exactly.
Either you don't like if they just say goodbye and they're like, "No, you're irrelevant," like whatever, goodbye. Yeah, it kind of sucks. But try and say, "Hey, do you mind if you refer me to somebody else in the business? I'd love to continue this conversation." They're going to, of course. Yeah. So I like to take that same kind of mentality a little bit in those terrible days. Of it is really gratifying and uplifting. And what's the word I'm looking for? Empowering.
That's what I've been thinking the whole time.
Exactly. It's empowering to take control of the situation.
Right.
That problem is no longer dominating you when you think of, how can I use you?
Right.
What can I do? Like, how am I going to use you?
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm going to meet you my bitch. Like, whatever problem it is, you're like, you know what? I'm going to learn from this. If it's like grieving, for example, something really hard, a lot of times you can be like, you know what? I'm going to take this moment to realize how strong my connection was with this person. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to value that. And that's something I will carry with me for the rest of my life. Mm-hmm. And I'm excited for that. I'm excited that I will have those connections we've had and realize that this makes me want to strengthen my relationships with the people around me that I love.
Right.
Or if it's a shitty essay, be like, all right, this means I can't fuck around anymore. Sure, I gave it my all. I did everything I could have, but let me meet with the professors. Let me see what I can change. Maybe it's stuff I didn't notice.
Right.
Or how could I have set up my life before this event that would have prepared me better? Mm-hmm. Or that I could have maybe avoided some of the feelings I'm in today. Mm-hmm. And when you get that in that headspace of, all right, how can I use this to my advantage? It totally flips the script of how that problem is now unfolding. Because now it's no longer just slaughtering you. It's not just slapping you anymore. Now you're taking something from it with each of those slaps.
Yeah, and you're even using it.
Exactly. And then you're taking that forward with you, which is such a valuable skill, in my opinion. And that's where, again, you were talking about like the choice.
Right.
Right? And that really is the choice. You can choose to do that.
Exactly.
And you can, again, it's a conscious decision of, I am going to choose that this shitty day will turn into something productive. Mm-hmm. Or turn into something that I can take from it. Mm-hmm. Fuck it. Mm-hmm. And then doing that is such, oh my God, it's immaculate.
It was awesome. Bro, it's really awesome listening to you talk about things you're passionate about, Will. When you get riled up, bro, it's really hard not to be engaged. That was fire.
Thank you.
The people are going to love this. Okay, so the last question I normally ask is on a timeline. So the last 6 months and the coming 6 months, if there's anything you're particularly thankful for or anything you're dreading. But you've already talked about the MCAT, you've talked about graduating and stuff like that. So I'm going to give you this time free, wherever you want to go with this. If you want to talk about Flyberta, if you just want to chop it up with the people, if you do want to answer the question, it's up to you, man.
Ooh, that's a good question. I'll actually ask you a question.
Okay. Word.
And then we can turn a little bit of conversation. because I think it relates a lot to what makes you happy, is how do you, I guess you could, the word I'm going to use is express.
Mm-hmm.
Express your passion. So, first of all, what are you passionate about? What do you enjoy?
Right.
And what do you do for that?
Right.
Like, what do you engage in that activity? Do you teach it? Do you learn about it? How do you kind of express, and what is your passion?
Okay, I'll give you 3. Just basketball was something from when I was 12 years old to when I was 21 that I did every single day.
Yeah.
So that was a part of my life, and I would say it was a passion of mine. But playing basketball wasn't the passion. The game itself is the passion. So we can get into that later. Biology, or just learning about how our world operates, how animals operate, how we interact with each other on a biological level really drives me.
Yeah.
And then the third one I would say is teaching. I'm not saying I know everything, and we talked about this right at the start. I don't think I'll ever know everything.
Yeah, of course.
But being able to walk people through something with my experience and have them find their truth in that is something that gives me nothing but fulfillment.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. What about you, big guy?
What about me? Well, I think, again, it's kind of shown a little bit, of course. Always brings back
I am a fisher.
I'm a fisher. I'm a fishing guy. And, of course, physiology. So, fly fishing is something I'm passionate about because, of course, I find it's like an analogy for so many parts of my life. There's a lot I can learn from it. The activity itself is cool because you can nerd out about it as much as you'd like. You can learn all the insects, all the flowers, all the physics behind the water patterns if you want to. It's as far as you want to take it, which I love, because it's an environment I will always learn no matter what. I've been fly fishing for 8-9 years now, and every time I go I learn something, and I take that second to, like, again, critically think about it and learn about it, which I really enjoy. And then I think I like to, like, express it obviously in like let's say this in a bit of a wishy-washy way, but like creatively. Yeah. That's the way I like to do it. So I'm a guy who really likes to take stupid thoughts I have and explore it to the max in my free time.
Take it to the extreme.
Yeah. So I'll be like, for example, actually, well, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a good example. Well, a good example is actually Alberta. So I was working at a golf course, summer 2020, driving around my little golf cart, and I was like, this is fucking boring. Like, this sucks. I'm like raking sand traps at 5 a.m. Like, what am I doing?
It's
like,
not even a cart girl. You're not getting good tips. You're not getting flirted with.
Yeah, I'm not getting hit on by, like, old ladies. I was like, this is the worst. So, it was fun. It's kind of fun in some ways, but it was the worst. I'm like, this is not really what I want to be doing. So I took a second. I'm like, all right, what do I like doing? What am I passionate about? Fly fishing. And I was like, all right, how can I translate that into a source of income? Right. Because I'm like, I'm working at the golf course because I obviously need money. Right. And I want to play free golf, but I was like, I need some money as well. So I was like, oh, well, I don't know, like, what do I know about fly fishing? And I was like, well, I've taught some friends and family before, and I know how I would have liked to learn fly fishing. I wonder if anybody's giving fly fishing lessons in Calgary. So I looked on Kijiji, and I was like, fly fishing lessons. And there was one ad. It was terrible. It was like $180 for 3 hours.
No disrespect to these people, but that's out of pocket.
Yeah, but I was like, I'm like, this ad sucks. I'm like, I could do something better than this in 4 minutes. Yeah. And I was like, I'm gonna do it.
So we did.
So I did a typed out an ad, put up some of my favorite, like, fly fishing pictures, and I was like, I'm just gonna show that I'm like a happy, passionate guy. This is what, like, I would love to try and teach people. Yeah. And I did it, and I had I'll also say that this guy's terrible ad, 700 views in a month. Just in Calgary.
So there's a pretty big market.
I was like, all right, there's a market there. I'll do it. So I do mine. I get a message in 30 minutes. It's a father trying to book me for his son's 17th birthday as a birthday gift. And I'm like, first of all, what are you doing on Kijiji booking, like, fly fishing lessons as a birthday gift? I was like, this is the weirdest behavior ever. And I was like, yeah, sure, we'd organize it. I remember I think I negotiated they were going to pay for, it was like a 4-hour lesson for like a couple $100 or something. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is more than I like making like 2 days of the golf course. Like, holy cow. And then I'm driving there and I'm like, wait, what am I doing? Like, I actually have to teach somebody now. I was like, oh my god, I didn't think this turned on. I'm like, oh no. And then I get there and I'm like, I'm somebody's birthday present. Like, what? Bro. And then I get out there and I'm like, oh fuck, what do I even start by saying? And I was like, wait, relax. You know what you want to say.
Exactly.
What? You know how to fly fish. You know what you need to know. You've done this for as long as you have.
Yeah, bro.
And I just started spewing, like I always spew. And it just flowed, like, incredibly well. And the dad comes up to me at the end and he's like, hey, Will, like, I came here and booked this lesson because my son is this weird, like, hard on for fly fishing. And I was like, okay, I guess I'll book you a lesson and you seem kind of cool. But I hate fishing. I hate it. And I think I'm literally going to go buy a fly rod on my way home. I loved this today. You were so passionate and engaging that I was like, I have to try this.
Right.
Or have to get more into it. And that was like, just as you said, such a gratifying thing to hear. I was like, wow. I'm like that. I never expected to actually have an impact. So it was cool to take my passion and then translate it into something that was now like working and affecting other people, and it's a source of income. I was like, oh, this is awesome. And then I am a terrible artist. Mm-hmm. I suck at drawing. I'm fucking awful. Okay. Music, like creative activities are always been my like weakness. The only class I've ever failed was music in elementary. They failed me. They gave me like a 2 out of 5 or 1 out of 5 or whatever.
Disrespectful.
And I like I remember they made me set up all the wiring for like music rehearsals and assemblies as like extra grades, and they still failed me. Wow. It would keep me after school and be like, you have to set up like, bro. Yeah, I was like, I think it was like a 1 or 2 on the report card, and I was like, what? I was like staying after school for 3 hours, like setting up cables. I was like, when I was like 10,
that's so abuse. Funny.
But anyways, I liked creatively approaching problems. And I was like, all right, I want to like express fly fishing in different ways and like have it impact my community more. And I remember there was the Grassy Mountain coal project that started in Alberta. Obviously, I'm not going to talk about coal industries or whatever, but this coal mine happened to be at the headwaters of a major river system, like right at the headwaters, right at the top. Yeah. And I was like, whoa, it's a tough spot to put a coal mine. Like, this is the drinking water for hundreds of thousands of Albertans. It flows all the way to the Hudson's Bay. It is the source of water for almost all of the agriculture in southern Alberta. Crazy watershed. Anyways, I was like, this is a serious topic. And this was also a river I had grown up fly fishing.
Right. So
and I was like...
It meant something to you.
Yeah. So I was like, you know what, let me take my like university degree here a little bit. So I did some primary research. I went to the primary literature on the effects that can come from a coal mine for a watershed, for trout, for humans, what the like scale of the damage would be, the species that were in the area, how this would relate to the picture as a whole, as if we put this coal mine in and the whole work. So I was like, wow, you know what, as like from like an unbiased perspective where, again, I'm not like industry and stuff is not, of course, my passion. I'm not very educated. And I was like, this is bad news.
Right.
And I was like, you know what, fly fishing people would care about this. I'm like, this would be something they care about. Again, this is my passion. So I decided I would post about it and I'd make a sticker. Right. So I'm going to make a sticker. People love stickers. So I did this crazy artwork for the first time. I'd never made art before. And it ended up blowing up. And we were able to raise like $1,000 for the Canadian Parks and Wilderness Society that was doing some legal action and like petitions and marketing to raise awareness about the coal mine.
That's huge.
And we got featured in a blog with 250,000 followers, this huge fly fishing blog. And we were published all over the place. And it blew us up a little bit for a bit. And I was like, wow. I'm like, that was awesome. And it raised, I think, from our post, thousands of signatures for the federal petition. It was crazy.
Right.
And I was like, wow, I never expected that, like, randomly hearing this one news article from this obscure newspaper and then deciding to do the research and post about it. It blew up into this thing. It was like, that was crazy. And that was, it brought me a lot of happiness. So, like, taking the thing I was passionate about and finding creative and unique ways to actually express it led to a lot of gratification, a lot of happiness, and a lot of new avenues for income, and relationships that I never expected, which was really enjoyable.
Yeah.
Awesome.
honestly, man, it blows my mind because you have a blog too, right?
Yeah, but we've only posted a couple of times.
Well, it doesn't matter. In my mind, you go from showing this one kid on his birthday how to fly fish to being a resource for people to educate themselves in one way, shape, or another. So, like, K11 and I started this because quarantine was boring and we were going insane.
Yeah.
Right? And their lives went in a different direction than mine did. But I fell in love with this process. Because it's like, sure. I've always loved talking to people. I was raised by a single parent and I was an only child. So it's not like I had siblings to chop things up about, right? So my friends have always been my family. And being able to take the time to watch them break down their thoughts and really get to know them as people is huge for me. And then for me on the coaching side of things, sure, it was cool when I hit a layup or when I dunked on somebody, which did not happen very often. I'm not trying to gas myself, man, seriously. But when those things happened, it was great. But for me, seeing somebody 5 years my junior pull that off, and then look over at me and smile and say, "Do you see that?" Yeah. Even if it's just a left-handed layup, man, like that fills me with pride.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think it's very important, and I'd like you to speak to this. It's clear to you that you could not pursue just your passion as a financial career.
Yeah.
Because that might even take some of the interest away from it.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't ever want to coach for money. Yeah. My podcast, if it starts making money, great. But I don't care, man. I'm just trying to have conversations. So I don't know. Do you see it differently?
I like the blend.
Yeah.
Money is nice.
Money is nice.
Money is nice, and it's for me. I find it's a good motivator. Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh, this is cool that when I put the work in, I see financial results. I'm like, oh shit, it's kind of nice. Yep. So that part, I enjoy. I like. For me, again, just taking it into as much avenues as possible. Just exploring things. Again, I'm an explorer guy. Mm-hmm. Like exploring, I like learning. So trying new things with it. And we got like some bags we're making and trying new lesson formats or teaching different groups of people, of course, or connecting with different groups, collaborating with different people. Always makes it really unique and variable and interesting. And that I find really enjoyable.
Yeah. Well, this is the part of the show where Will and I are going to do a shameless plug because it's very important to me that you guys go use his business. I was on Reddit one day on the fishing forum in Alberta, and then somebody was like, "You got any fly fishing lessons in Calgary?" And I was like, "Go look this guy up. This is my friend, Will. My associate, Harry, their company, Flyberta. They should be what you're looking for, because it's not like he was looking for like an official lesson. He was just trying to dip his toes in the water. And the fact that actually worked out blows my mind.
Yeah. He hit us up. He was a little mean, that guy.
That's not good. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay, but it was okay. I was like, all right. I remember he hit me up, and I was like, what? And then I can't remember if you texted me or what had happened, but then I was like, holy cow! It actually translated, which was that was awesome. So, anyways, shameless plug. I own and operate Flyberta. Yeah. It's like Alberta plus fly fishing. Flyberta.
Very creative.
It's very creative, right? But anyways, you can check us out on our Instagram. We got a website. If you're ever being like, you know what, I want fly fishing to be my church. Mm-hmm. Hit me up. I'll be your father. I don't know.
Yeah, this isn't the Scientology stuff though, man. Fly fishing can actually be a religion. This makes sense. So I'm all down for it. You already know that I'm going to continue asking Will to take me fishing because this guy knows where all the spots are. So
absolutely.
If you guys have the time and the interest, I say you should get your hands on it too.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a good way. No problem, brother. Is there anything else you want to tell the people before we cut this one?
No. I got it all out.
Word? That's what I like to hear. Well, I gotta turn this on one more time. I just want to say thank you. This is a blessing. I know this opportunity is not available for everybody to be able to learn and connect with their friends the way that I can through this podcast. And it's very interesting to me because we haven't seen each other since we walked across the stage.
Yeah, it's like, wow, it actually has been 4 years.
It does not feel any different.
I know,
right?
which is crazy.
So take the good people in your life, find them, keep them around, and we hope you're enjoying the fork in the road because we're going to be back and there's nothing you can do about
excited.
it. Appreciate it. Thanks, William.
Of course, anytime.
Take it easy, guys. Have a good rest of your day.